Hello everyone, Paul Hercombe here, shooting a video from Sweden. We're in Västerås, Sweden, where we are just staying at a beautiful summer house that Ulrika's parents have just bought, and very nice place, right next to church where I am now. And I wanted to bring up the topic in this video of shame, because shame is one of the most difficult emotions I think to deal with, and it's certainly one that I feel has been with me, with me for a lot of my life, feeling deep down a very deep shame, or very deep feeling of something being bad, or something something at the root, which is very uncomfortable. And shame is very different from guilt, because guilt is often about something. You feel guilty for having done something, or for having, thought something, or whatever it might be. But shame is much more about who we feel we are. And this feeling of shame is, I think it's in many people, especially many people who have been traumatized as children. And what I want to speak about a little bit is about how to bring these feelings, these very strong feelings like shame, or maybe guilt, or you can use any feeling really that's very strong in you, how to bring that into the path of inquiry, the path of self-inquiry. So there are many ways of doing this. You can try different ways, try what feels good for you and what works for you. A lot of the time it can be just holding the traumatized child, the child inside us that feels shame for being wrong, or for feeling bad, or whatever. But in this video I want to speak about how to bring it into inquiry. So what I say is, when the feeling of shame arises inside you, see if you can really go to the root of that feeling. So for me, when it arises, it comes right in the pit of the belly, like right at the very core of the belly, in my stomach. And when the feeling arises, it's like, can we first of all just bring our attention there? Can we just bring our awareness there? Can we bring our focus there? And as we bring our focus there, can we truly begin to feel this feeling of shame? Can we allow ourselves to fully feel it? And resisting the temptation to identify with it, or resisting the temptation to avoid it, or resisting the temptation to believe certain stories around it, just to fully open ourselves to the feeling of shame. And as we begin to feel this feeling of shame inside us, can we really welcome it? So we really want it to come up as strongly as we can bear it. And then when we feel like it's come up very strong, and we can feel this feeling of shame inside us very strongly, we just ask the question as an open inquiry: to whom is this shame coming? Or to whom does this shame belong? And then we begin to see if we can find the one who suffers from the shame. So if we can truly use the shame to deepen into our inquiry, so we just look, who am I that suffers this sense of shame? Because usually the habit is to immediately identify with feelings when they arise. But now it's just bring it into the inquiry, and just look into this feeling of shame. To whom is it arising? And we're just looking. Can we find the one for whom shame is arising? And as we begin to look inside ourselves, What do we find when we look? Can we find an entity to which this shame belongs? And what we'll find when we look is that we cannot find the one to which the shame is arising. So then it's just a feeling of shame without being identified with and without being strengthened through any story. So now there's just the feeling of shame that's here. And the feeling of shame without being identified with, it may feel uncomfortable, it may feel unpleasant, but it doesn't create a separate sense of identity anymore. And it's almost like now the feeling is there, it is brought into the field of consciousness, but it is not identified with. Also, you're not avoiding it, and you're not bypassing it. You're fully bringing it into the light of consciousness. And every time we do this, every time we bring it into the light of consciousness, every time we fully find a yes to shame or to whatever feeling is strong inside you, the power of its, or the strength of it begins to weaken, until maybe there comes a certain point where it still arises, somehow it's still in us a little bit, but it doesn't have the same power and strength that it used to have when we identified with it and became a shameful person. So it's a subtle thing what I'm speaking about, but it makes a tremendous difference. Now this feeling of shame is there. Even if it feels unpleasant, it can be there. And like I said, this is just one way of dealing with it. Another way of dealing with it is to look at it as an inner child, and then it needs love and care and nurturing. But in this video I'm speaking about using inquiry for strong feelings. Alright, I hope this video is helpful, and yeah, write to me about it if you want, or not. Okay, bye everyone, bye bye.